You had that ready to go.
Yeah, I did. I'm prepared, son.
I already did the Facebook.
Okay, good.
I'm getting that echo from your end again.
Well, you're getting kind of your voice is getting kind of crunchy for me. It's got to
Really?
be your internet doing that because everything sounds fine on my end.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
Okay,
as
maybe.
long as it sounds fine on my end, that's good because I'm the one recording it.
Okay, you're not getting an echo of yourself.
No,
All right.
I think if you go in your user settings, go under voice and video, and I think if you there's echo cancellation in there. Turn that on if it's off.
Okay. Echo cancellation. It's on.
Okay. I don't know why you would be getting that then. That makes no sense whatsoever.
That's all right. We'll wing it.
Okay. As we usually do.
Yeah.
21 episodes in, we still don't know what we're doing. So that's
No.
fine. Well, I guess we can go ahead and start the show. Everybody ready?
I think so. Yeah.
You want me
Yeah, I'm
to?
ready.
I guess I'll do the our ad read at the beginning. What should we
Okay.
just say? What we have $1, $3, and $10 tier. I'll just say if you want to be a $10 tier, you can. We'll shout out your social media and or business at the beginning of the show.
Sounds good.
All
We have
right.
3, 5, and $10 tier.
Oh
We
yeah,
don't
that's right.
have a $1 tier.
Okay. All right. All right. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. If you would like to be a Patreon supporter of this show, go to patreon.com/ompodcast. We have a $3, a $5, and a $10 tier. And if you have a business or if you'd like us to shout out your business or your social media at the beginning of the show, go join that $10 tier and help keep the lights on here at the Open Micers Podcast. And with that being said, on with the show. Ooh, it's Thursday night, and you know what that music means. It is time for the Open Micers Podcast. My name is Jason Robbins.
I'm Jacob Craig.
No, you're not. Shut up. Oh, we have a fantastic guest tonight that I am very, very excited to have on the show. He is the director of the short film Survey that has been winning awards for the last 15 years that it's been in the festival run.
It's only been 3 years.
Yeah. And also, one of the coolest things about Steve is before we got Batman Begins, there was to be a fifth Batman movie in the original Batman timeline, the 1989 Batman timeline, and there was going to be another movie after Batman and Robin called Batman Dark Knight. And Steve is one of the writers of that movie. And if you're interested, I'll put a link in the show notes to where you can actually go to Amazon and buy that script to read. But here he is, the great, the powerful, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, Steve Wise.
Thanks for having me here.
Dude, I'm so excited to have you here tonight because not only are you a really good writer, a director, but you have taught me more in the past. In the first year that I knew you, you taught me more about writing than all of my college and high school creative writing and journalism teachers ever taught me. And that I can't thank you enough for. And I know you probably get sick of me constantly throwing ideas at you and being like, "What do you think about this? What do you think about this?" But Steve is almost for a lot of the filmmakers around here. You're basically our guru that we go to. And how do you feel about being the go-to guy for everybody here in the filmmaking community on the
I guess
coast?
big fish in small pond. syndrome. Yeah, I mean, it's thank you for the accolades. I look at myself a little, but that's okay.
But let's kind of get started. Like, when did you know that? What kind of inspired you to be a writer? Did it
Uh,
was it something that happened as a kid, or was it older, or like later, and as an adult,
well,
or?
I've been kind of a movie and TV buff literally my entire life. I started making short films with my friends when I was 8 years old on Super 8, and just I started writing screenplays and stories when I was very young, and just never stopped. So
Yeah,
I was fortunate enough to get into the brand new at the time film program at the University of Central Florida, and um, studied studied filmmaking there, and so it was a good education.
yeah. So, like I said, you actually got to write a Batman movie, and you've told me this story before when we were on our big road trip to the Tampa Film Festival for Cervi, and so tell everybody that story. That's like that blew my mind that you actually were the writer for a Batman movie that was going to be made until, and then explain kind of what happened with that.
Well, first off, I have to give equal credit to Lee Shapiro, who was my co-writer on it. He and I had written several screenplays together, and had been spending several years going back and forth. We lived in Orlando at the time. We were flying back and forth to Los Angeles to meet with studios and pitching our scripts, both the ones that we wrote together and our solo ones. And we had a meeting this back in like 899, and we had a meeting with Warner Brothers, and so Lee refused to watch Batman and Robin. It had come out a year or two before that, and both of us were huge Batman fans. And I finally forced him to sit down and watch it on VHS, and we had to stop the movie several times because we couldn't believe that we were seeing what was actually on screen. And when it was over, we both looked at each other and said, "How did this get made?
Hmm.
We could come up with something far better than that." And so we just kind of started brainstorming, and we figured, well, if they were going to do another movie in that series, and because the Joel Schumacher films still are in the same series as the Tim Burton films,
Yeah.
whether we want to admit it or not. And we wanted to go back to kind of that dark fantasy feel from the Tim Burton films. And so we thought, well, the villains that would make most sense would be either or Scarecrow or Man-Bat. Nobody had done Man-Bat live action. Well, nobody had done Scarecrow live action up to that point either. But we thought it would be really interesting to see what could be done with those characters, with Scarecrow being the primary villain and Man-Bat being the what we call a gray character. He's not heroic, he's not villainous, but he could go either way.
Yeah.
And basically tell his story as kind of a Beauty and the Beast type of tale. And so, anyways, we came up with the plot just like almost instantly, and the interactions with Batman and Robin was included in the story also. And we contacted our contact over at Warner Brothers, who at the time was Greg Silverman, who later became the president of the company. And he put us in touch with the vice president that was in charge of the Batman series, Tom LaSalle, and we pitched it to him. And he said, "Yeah, that sounds great. Write it. Send it to me. I want to see it." And we did a couple drafts. We sent it to him, and he quit the company.
Oh.
The week that we sent it to him, he quit. And as is typical with studios, when one executive leaves, the people who come in generally don't necessarily want to continue what that executive. Now, he was only vice president, but so we spent some time kind of going back and forth with Warner Brothers, and finally it got into the hands of Lorenzo di Bonaventura, who was the president at the time. And he told us, yeah, I've got it sitting on my desk, but we don't know what we're going to do with the series. Batman and Robin, even though it technically made money, it was such a disappointment to all the fans and the critics, and it I mean, after the opening weekend, it plummeted. So nobody really liked that film. They definitely wanted to go in a different direction. They just didn't know what. And apparently they had been kind of developing or looking at a couple different prospects. So Dark Knight, which we creatively spelled with the K in dark and in night being the same letter, so it was kind of like one word with the shared letter. We thought we were being clever, so yeah, take it for what it's worth.
And your huge super fan Derek Diamond is in the chat room right now.
Ooh, Mr. Diamond himself.
Yes. One of the things I think we talked about this before too. How does that work? Does Warner Brothers actually own your script, or did it revert back?
No.
The rights of the script go to you?
They own the rights to the characters, and but they don't own the rights to the words that we.
Okay. So
I can't sell it to Disney. So no other production company can.
But why not re-pitch it to DC as to their animation department?
We've kicked that around. We just haven't reached that point.
Because I mean, if I had somebody on the inside at the DC Animation, I could kind of slide in there as a voice actor, on your coattails. Yeah. So get on it there, Steve. Get on it, man.
Well, Jason, you would make a great voice actor.
Yeah, I'd love to be a voice actor.
Jason just wants you to sell this. Jason just wants you to sell this script so he can be Batman. That's all
right. Dude, if I got to play the voice of Batman, I could die a happy man. I'm Batman. I got it. I got the voice, man.
Actually, I could see you playing Man-Bat.
I could do that too. Dude, I would love to play a live-action version of Man-Bat.
Yeah.
Oh,
I could see that. You are so ugly.
Well, thanks.
They would save so much money on CGI by casting you as Man-Bat.
Well, that's why they should hire you as the Penguin.
I'm too tall to be the Penguin. I would be a good Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
Oh, that's not bad. Yeah, we should go back into the well of the 60s Batman villains and start pulling some of those out, like oh man, like Colonel Gum and Egghead.
Yeah, King Tut.
Oh, King Tut, yes.
There you go, Jason.
That was Vincent Price, wasn't it? That played Egg. Well, did he play Egghead? Right, Vincent Price.
Egghead,
yeah, he played it.
Right.
Yeah.
Man, I love that show. They should do a reboot of that.
Yeah, I would love to see Campy Batman back.
Yeah, no kidding.
And just everyone pretends that that's what it's always been.
Yeah.
But I'm a huge Batman fan, and I'm a bit of a writer too. But I have no idea how screenwriting works at all. So when you were writing the script for Batman: The Dark Knight, I mean, did you write it with actors in mind, like George Clooney, or did you try to write it true to the characters from the comic books? How did that
we were trying to write true to the characters. Now that said, we kind of assumed that George Clooney would probably continue in the role, but we had no idea because he was the third actor in 4 movies. So with them going back, if they progressed with our story, they would be kind of reverting back to a darker tone. So who knows if they, it would all depend on the director and what contracts were in place. So, that's kind of out of the hands of the writer. But yeah, I mean, like for Kurt Langstrom, Man-Bat, we had a couple actors in mind that we could see playing that character. One was Kiefer Sutherland, and another was Kevin Bacon. So, we had, thinking, okay, those guys might be appropriate for this character.
Yeah, Kevin Bacon, Man-Bat. I'm definitely on board with that.
Yeah.
I heard a rumor, and I heard this before I even knew that you wrote this script and that I had a connection to you before Jason. That it was rumored that Nicolas Cage was interested in perhaps going to play the Scarecrow in that film.
Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, there's a lot of rumors that came around. We never got that far with Warner Brothers to, you know, to discuss casting. And quite frankly, they don't discuss casting with the writers, anyways. It's just here's your money, and we're gonna hire someone else to come in and rewrite your scenes.
When was that Superman movie that he was supposed to be in? Wasn't that around like '98 or so?
That was early 2000s, I think, if I'm not mistaken. 2002-ish.
I thought that that was supposed to be like a companion with Michael Keaton's Batman. Or am I mistaken on that?
No, Keaton was 89, 92.
Well, Tim Burton was going to direct that Superman movie. So
Tim Burton was in pre-production. He was in development on it for a good year. And so the story goes that I heard, he and his team went to Philadelphia, I think it was, to scout out locations. While they were on location scouting, Warner Brothers closed their offices.
Oh.
And so they came back home or back to LA to find out that their production office was closed.
That sucks.
That's how they found out that the movie got canceled.
Wow.
Yeah, Warner Brothers. Let me just say, it was an interesting time dealing with them.
I have a question for you, Steve. What is your take on Warner Brothers giving Zack Snyder another $70 million to do reshoots for Justice League?
I think that they're looking to...
Yeah, and Rampage says Superman Lives was in 1998. So that's when that was going to be. I don't know. It just to some degree, Warner Brothers. I mean, what is
some of their decisions are questionable.
What is their end goal with that? I mean, are they really going to make that money back off of? I mean, it's like they're riding the whole HBO Max. Is it HBO Max or whatever?
Yeah. They're putting on their streaming service, so they're looking for content that they can sell and high-profile content.
But it just seems like they're riding everything on that, and I just don't. Yeah. I don't really get it. Is there that much interest that you would dump another $70 million? I mean, that movie already cost like $350 million to make.
But you got to figure that they've already, for whatever the profit or loss was on the movie. And of course, in Hollywood, every movie makes a loss.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling they, despite the lukewarm reception it had, it still made its money back in the long term, as far as in reality, whether it shows it on paper or not. So this is a $70 million investment into I'm not sure how they're releasing it in 2 parts or 4 parts or whatever, but basically a mini series that will get eyeballs on it. People will watch it just out of curiosity. People who hated the theatrical release may watch it just to see what the differences are and see if there's an improvement. It's the same reason why people bought the extended version of Batman vs. Superman on Blu-ray. It's like, oh, this is a newer version. Maybe it's better. And there's money in Warner Brothers.
Because I'll make a confession right now, and this might get my nerd card revoked from me, but I still haven't seen Justice League. And I'll be honest,
I haven't seen it either, and I have it on. Someone gave it to me for Christmas a year ago, and it's on the shelf.
I just don't care.
I saw it in theaters opening weekend, and it's not as bad as everyone makes it out to be. It's not bad enough to warrant a Snyder cut. It's just a mediocre movie.
I just don't like I don't like that world that Zack Snyder built for those characters. It's too. There was no. I mean, this is such a cliche thing to say, but there was no joy in it. There was
Right.
no heart there. It just felt, it just felt like it was a movie made by, like, and I'll say this about Zack Snyder till the day I die, that he's a great visual director, but he is not a good storyteller. If you give him a great script, if you have a good writer and you give him a good script, he will make a badass movie. Look at 300. 300 was great. I even like The Watchmen. I think The Watchmen is a great movie. But
I like
you give him the keys to the kingdom, and you look at especially like Batman versus Superman. God, that was like 8 movies jammed into one, and it's like, just dude, just pick one thing
Exactly.
and go with the one thing. It just felt like
That was that was the problem with the series. Like, they did Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad and Justice League to compete with Marvel.
yeah.
Like, that's the only reason. They're not slow burning their way through the universe.
Well,
They're
they
like, oh, we
didn't-
need team up movies right now.
Yeah, they didn't earn it like Marvel did. They
Exactly.
and that's the stupid thing about it is, Marvel, they sold all their characters off back in the 90s when they were about to go bankrupt. That's why they don't own Spider-Man, and they didn't have the X-Men. But the thing is, with Warner Brothers, they had all those characters that they could have been making movies with for 40 years now, that they could have been making. They could have made Christopher Reeve and Tim Burton Batman movie. Like they could have been doing that for the last 40 years, but they have squandered every opportunity with the live action movies, with the exception of Christopher Nolan. Now, those were great movies. Those were great Batman movies.
Yeah.
The third one was a bit of a misstep, but he kind of, I think the death of Heath Ledger kind of painted him into a corner with that one.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, they've had so many opportunities to make a Justice League, build that universe, and I just don't understand why they never did.
Well, one of the things that went on after they turned down my Batman script, they went through a series of movies that went nowhere, and one of them was Justice League.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Justice
they
League
had,
Mortal.
I want to say they had Wolfgang Peterson on board for that one.
Wasn't
And,
George Miller supposed to do one at one point?
You know what? Maybe that was George Miller's, and Wolfgang Peterson was supposed to do a Batman versus Superman movie. So
Yeah.
and that was another one that was on the radar. They also had a live action Batman Beyond. Oz Yakin, I said his name right, who directed
Mhm.
Remember the Titans. He
Yeah.
was attached to that. And and of course they had Frank Miller and Darren Aronofsky had turned in a script for Batman Year One. In fact, my script was turned down for Miller and Aronofsky's Year One, and after that script was turned into Warner Brothers fired them. So they hated the script so much. So I mean,
Rampage is right. Did you ever
Warner
see
Brothers
the?
basically was like, okay, let's try this, and just throwing stuff at the
Mhm.
wall without really having a full understanding of what the material is and why it works.
Yeah. Well, Rampage said the animated Batman Dark Knight Returns was much better. And that's the thing with DC is they've been killing it on the animated front. Those animated movies are great.
Definitely.
Why can't they do that live action? They should have made Dark Knight Returns, 20 years ago, and you know who would have been absolutely perfect in that role? Brian Dennehy. I would
Rest
have
in
loved
peace.
to have seen an old broken down Batman played by Brian Dennehy. I don't know why. Because the art makes me think of Brian Dennehy. When I read those comics, like he looks like Brian Dennehy to me.
Jaw.
Yeah.
That's true. I would think about Tommy Boy the whole time, though.
Yeah. But enough about the DC universe. We're not here to talk about that. Steve, tell us about Servi.
Well, um, it's a short film. I wrote and directed and produced it, and Jason, you were one of the actors in it.
Yes,
Actually.
I
You
was the
got to
main
excuse my
villain.
voice; it's been kind of cracking. So if I lose it halfway through, apologize in advance. Um, yeah, it's kind of a fantasy action adventure type of thing, and it's a short film, 12 minutes long, but it was something that I took a chance on because I had never done fight scenes as a director before, and I wanted to do something more action oriented. Normally, things that I've done, and we shot it and threw it into film festivals, and it's been going and going and going.
How many
For the
film
last 3 years,
festivals?
it's been
Because
just playing everywhere around the world and winning awards.
I stopped counting at 50. How many has it been in at this point?
I want to say 54.
Okay.
And
Can I count 4 more, Jason? Really?
I
Well,
stopped. It was like it's just gonna keep going. It just hasn't stopped.
well, the funny thing is, I have a running list of all the festival awards, and I had to go back and update it the other day because I had stopped, and I realized that I was really far behind, and I had no idea how many exactly we've done. So it was something I need to keep up with. But it's actually going to be playing at the Fort Myers Film Festival in Fort Myers, Florida, um, the week prior to Halloween.
Awesome.
So I think it's that Thursday it's scheduled for. The film festival is a multi-day event leading up to that weekend. It was supposed to be in April, I think it was, but COVID caused them to postpone it, and they were able to reschedule for that weekend.
Well, I constantly get people asking where they can see it, and I keep having to tell them that it's still in its festival run. So,
Yeah.
what does the timetable look like where people will be able to actually see it?
Well, it just participated in not too long ago in 2 different festivals that were online. One was the Brooklyn Sci-Fi Film Festival, and people at that time, it's a few weeks ago now, could have logged in and watched it because they had well over, I think, like 100 short films that science fiction, fantasy films that they had on their lineup. Survey was one of them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But as far as timetable, I'm hoping soon we can put it out there for put on Amazon or something.
He said that about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But so this is we're going into Halloween now. We're in horror month right now. The next 4 weeks we've booked guests, or we have topics that are about horror and Halloween. And Steve, you have a script or a screenplay in the run right now, in the horror category. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, the script is called Maelstrom, and it's an old-fashioned monster movie. I have a love of anything that is set on an island and where people are trapped on the island, and if there's a killer or some monster or otherworldly creation that's killing them off one by one. Kind of gets back to my love of Agatha Christie books, actually, novel, and then there were none. Or Ten Little Indians was another variation of the title. But in that book, you had 10 people that were strangers brought to an island for unknown reasons, and then they were killed off one by one until nobody's left. And I always love that. Even going to like Jurassic Park, and there was a movie that was made like in the early 60s, and I always forget the name of it, but about a group of people that were stranded on this island with this mad scientist, and they can't go into the water because it's filled with this silvery substance that I think it's called the Flesh Eaters.
Yeah, you sent me the link for that not too long ago.
I think I did, yeah. I always forget, but I think it's called the Flesh Eaters. So that's kind of, you know, one of those things that I'm drawn to, that kind of story. So in Maelstrom, it's kind of a wealthy family and their employees who have gathered for a family reunion on this island they own. It has a mansion on it, and a tropical storm is hitting, so they have to, you know, kind of bear through that. But one of the family members has been for the last 6 months in South America in the jungle, in the Amazon, with his girlfriend, who's an anthropologist, and they're studying the indigenous tribes that exist in the Amazon. And he's a photographer. Well, he gets a little close to some creature, something, some animal that they pull out of the jungle, and he gets injured. Well, unbeknownst to him, he's been infected by this parasite, if you will. And after he goes back to his family and they're on this island, he turns into a creature. And that then proceeds to turn other people that are on the island into. And so the survivors have to fight their way through these, you know, unknown things while the storm rages on. Of course, trapped on Amazon.
Well, I got to read the script a while back, and I fell in love with it. And I don't, you know, it's been winning a ton of awards at all the screenwriting festivals and things like that. So I'm hoping you get it made one of these days. And
it's made semifinalists in 3 festivals so far. So just to clarify, the Orlando Film Festival is coming up here later in the month. It's a semifinalist for that, and I'll know whether it won or not, you know, by the Orlando Film Festival, which I won that festival last year with my screenplay Paradigm. So, you know, 2 years running.
And that's a good script too. I've read that one too.
Thank you. It's also actually going on Halloween. It's going to be in 2 different festivals where it's an official selection. One, the Southern Horror Film Festival in Atlanta, and it's also participating in Horror House Film Festival in Los Angeles. So I've actually got 2 projects in 3 festivals in 3 states on Halloween.
That's awesome.
Happy Halloween to you, Steve.
Yeah, Steve.
Thank you.
And I'm hoping that you know, with the attention that Maelstrom is getting, that you'll get to make it soon, and you'll get to you know, make it and throw your boy a bone here and let me play.
Yeah.
Well,
play another
first things
character.
first. I'm actually working on Paradigm.
Yes.
Which won 3 awards over the last year, and I've got a producer, actually 2 producers lined up right now that are helping develop this, and we're looking for money. So
that's going to be hard to do while the pandemic's going on, because I was actually involved with a few projects. A really big project, one that I actually went to New Orleans and did a sizzle reel for, and as soon as COVID hit, man, dude, wallet started slamming shut, and so a lot of projects got put on the back burner and just waiting for this whole thing to pass, because nobody wants to spend money when they're, you know, when there's a disease flying through the air.
Well, one of the problems too, even though production is starting to happen, is that you have to follow very strict procedures with COVID safety, and even to the point to where they're classifying the cast and crew in different tiers. And so tier 1 would be like the director and the producer and the main cast, and they can eat together and they can coexist together. But if they're around anybody who's in a tier 2, which would be like the next level crew members, they have to be, you know, wear masks and social distancing. And then there's a tier 3, which are the PAs and you know, the background performers and whatnot, and they're kind of off on their own. So people have to wear badges that clearly identify which tier they belong to, and it's you know, very stratified. I mean, already being on a film set, there's a very strict hierarchy, and now it's like segregating this even more, almost like a caste system.
Yeah, and, that's weird. I hope that goes away once COVID's over with.
It will. I think. I mean, eventually, whether it will be in a month or 2 years from now, things will return to some sense of normalcy.
God, I hope
And
so.
yeah, I mean, it just it has to. I mean, because people tolerate things for only so long, and then they get tired of it, whether or
Yeah.
not it's a smart thing to do. They kind of fall back into their old habits.
But before we go this evening, one thing I did wanted to ask you, Steve. I know you are a movie lover. You love film, and we've talked for hours on the subject. And since we're in Halloween, what would you suggest? Like, what would be your absolute probably favorite horror movie to get in the Halloween spirit?
Hmm. Other than Halloween,
Yeah, I mean that's a good
um,
one.
well, I mean, you can't go wrong with the original John Carpenter Halloween.
Yeah.
I would stick within the John Carpenter universe, if you will.
Well,
The Fog
with that
is
being said, this is going to
uh,
prove whether or not me and you are friends. What do you think about Halloween 3?
oh, I was actually going to throw that out there. It's very underrated, and
Thank
it
you.
is a misnomer because it has nothing to do with the series other than being produced by John Carpenter and being set at Halloween. So if people going into it expect it to be a Michael Myers story,
Yes.
and it has nothing to do with it. It exists in a different universe. But it is a creepy film.
It
I mean,
is.
it's a pretty. In fact, Tom Akins, who's the leads in it or star of it, is going to be at Pensacon this year.
I know. I can't wait to meet him. I'm actually going to bring my VHS copy of Halloween 3 and have him sign it for me.
Nice.
Um,
I need to get on
Halloween 3 has a place in my heart for that movie.
and I think the reason that I actually liked, honestly, like it's my favorite Halloween movie. Don't get me wrong, I love Halloween 1. Don't get me wrong, it's one of the greatest slasher. I mean, it set up the entire genre. But when it comes to Halloween 3, there was just something so creepy and weird and different about it. And I think the reason I like it better is because I did see it first before I saw the first two Halloween movies. I actually saw it. I was a kid back in the '80s when Fox first became a network. They would, the first year or two, they would play movies and not cut anything out. Like you would turn on Fox and there would be cursing and there'd be boobs. I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever. But I remember they used to have this thing on Sunday nights called Crown Dodge Chrysler Theater, and it was sponsored by a local Dodge dealership, and they would play like horror and sci-fi movies. And one of the ones that I saw was Halloween 3. And since the first time I saw that movie, I've been in love with it. And it's still one of my favorite. And I guess you would classify it as a horror movie, but it's more sci-fi horror than anything. But
it's horror because it's definitely there's him.
Yeah, I mean, there's horror elements, but it's more really like
it's a thriller.
Yeah, thriller more than anything. And Jacob, have you ever seen Halloween 3?
No. God damn it.
My son, I will teach you the ways of Halloween 3.
I have this giant list of movies that Jason has told me I have to see.
That's on the list. See, me and Steve, I think me and Steve are on the same page when it comes to John Carpenter. And honestly, John Carpenter is my favorite director. I love John Carpenter. I'll watch any movie he makes. And, he didn't direct Halloween 3. He only produced it. But there's his style is all over that movie, though. Because when you have John Carpenter movies, there's a certain tone to them and a certain feel, and that's what I really love most about his movies. And he's a do-it-yourself guy too. I mean, he does all of his own soundtracks. He's a musician. He directs. He writes. He edits, and he's just kind of the all-around kind of director I would love to be.
Yeah, he kind of later in his career, his movies aren't that great.
Yeah.
But he had a string of films, probably about 6 or 7, that are just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Have you guys
Especially.
ever seen No, you go ahead. I was fixing to troll.
No, I was gonna say, Halloween 1, They Live, Big Trouble in Little China, Prince of
Escape from New
Darkness,
York,
Escape from New
Fog,
York.
Yeah,
Falls on
absolutely.
Precinct 13.
In the Mouth of Madness is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Oh, I love that movie. Starman.
Yeah,
You want to
Starman's
talk about
great.
something completely different.
Oh yeah.
Starman is hugely underrated as a
Mhm.
sci-fi movie. And Jacob, that's another one. Add that to the list. Starman.
No, I've seen Starman.
Okay, good.
I've seen Starman.
I'm sorry. I felt like I interrupted somebody there. What were we saying?
Oh, I was gonna ask, have you guys ever seen Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood?
Yes, I have.
You know, I actually refused to watch that, and I stopped.
No, that's
I
that's
actually
the
like
best one,
Part 6. Part 6 I actually enjoyed because it was more of a comedy, or kind of
Yeah.
a satire of
Well-
and it was like once you're satirizing yourself, it's done.
Yeah.
And when Part 7 introduced sci-fi elements with superpowers, and like, yeah.
So was Part 7 the one where he bashed the lady up against a tree and the
Yeah.
and the
Yeah, that's why it's my favorite. I laughed so hard.
'Cause
just
see that-
watching him pick up a sleeping bag and bash a lady's head against a tree.
That's the thing. My aunt took me to see that, and I think it came out in what, like 1987, 88. I was like 11 years old, way too young to be watching that movie in the theater, and I was like loving it. I was like, "Holy crap! I should not be watching this, but this is great."
That's my favorite movie, man. Jason, do you remember my bit I used to do that had that
Yeah.
movie in it? I talked about picking someone up in a sleeping bag and bashing their head against
and then
the
you
tree.
scream at the audience because nobody knew which movie you were talking about.
Yeah, I scream at the audience a lot.
But we're coming up on the end of the show. Steve, man, thank you so much for coming on the show this week. This is
Well, thank you for having me. It's fun.
I could talk shop with you all day long. You know that, and we have. we
Oh, yeah.
spent. When we went to the Tampa Film Festival. We spent 12 hours in a car together, and all we did was just talk movies and Avatar and everything. We talked about everything under the sun, and I love having someone that I can bounce ideas off of. And like I said, actually, before we go, if you could give anybody one piece of advice that wants to start writing, as far as like scripts, like movie scripts, what kind of advice would you give? Like somebody that's never done it, but is like, you know what, I want to write a script.
Well, just a very, very basic level, learn the formatting, because writing prose is very different than writing a screenplay. There are a lot of screenwriting programs out there that you can choose from. Some that you have to pay a lot of money for, some that are subscription, some free ones you can find, some of them are kind of sketchy. But it'll put it into proper format for you. But the understanding of why you have a scene header, why the dialogue is written a certain way, and just understanding the process of narrowing it down to only what you see and hear on screen.
That's been the one thing
what can be on the page is only what can be on the screen.
And that's the one thing that the biggest thing I learned from you was you would read my stuff and be like, if you can't see it, don't write it. And that's been the biggest challenge for me, is because I want to write, well, this person knows this or thinks this, and you're like, you can't put that in a script.
Yeah, how's the audience going to know that
Exactly,
unless you actually dramatize it? So that's the biggest challenge for people that are brand new writers, is understanding what the process is and why things are on the page the way they are.
And another thing you told me too is reading scripts.
Mhm.
is a good way to learn how to write scripts. And
Yeah.
what would you suggest? Because you can get scripts online, all
Yeah.
day. Now it's not like it was, when I was in high school wanting to be a filmmaker, and there was nowhere to get scripts unless you went to like a comic book show or something and somebody was selling them. But nowadays, it's
Right.
like if I'd have had the internet in the '90s, I would be way further than I am now. But what would you suggest would be a perfect script for somebody to read to get to know how to
Uh,
structure a good script?
Well, that's hard to say because you have people who like professional screenwriters, obviously, Quentin Tarantino and Shane Black, come to mind that kind of break the rules
Yeah,
and they do whatever they want to do because they can get away with that. And Shane Black, primarily with Lethal Weapon, he kind of threw out a lot of the conventions that had been standard at that point, and directly speaking to the reader, and which never been done before in screenplays. That it's like, hey, look at this kind of thing, and it made it fun to read, whether or not it showed up on the screen. You got the tone of it, and a lot of people try to emulate that without understanding why he was breaking the rules and what he was doing exactly with it. So you kind of have to be careful. And there's also a lot of scripts out there that are the final shooting script where it might have director's notes in it and it might have scene numbers and things like that, to where this has gone through a process, and this is what they're actually using on the set, as opposed to script that was written that was sold to the studio.
yeah.
So just kind of have to be careful with that and have an understanding that, you know, if you're a first time writer or newbie writer, or however you want to classify yourself, that's not necessarily how you do it.
Well, it would probably be a good idea to actually read, if you could get two different versions of a script, like a final, final draft, and then the shooting script, to find out,
Yeah.
to see the differences that there are between, the final draft and then the actual shooting script.
Well, talking about Batman, there were a number of different versions of the script that was floating around out there, that before Tim Burton finally said, yes, this is what I'm shooting. And there's one that a previous draft that Sam Hamm wrote that kind of took some of the elements and made it into the '89 Batman. Though there's at least 3 or 4 of those that are out there that you can read, and that's a really good, just kind of an exercise to look at what the process was that they went through from different writers, to see, okay, well, this writer had this idea, this writer had another idea,
Yeah.
knowing what the final product was, kind of see what the evolution was. Sometimes it's just, it just didn't work, or sometimes it's too expensive, or
Mm-hmm.
not what the director was wanting to do with it, or what the producers were wanting to do with it, or it could just be that it was just not good.
Yeah, because you can definitely tell sometimes that you go. I've gone down rabbit holes too of what was in the original script and what became, what was actually shot, and you find out like, well, like this just, this story element just doesn't work, or they had to go and do a reshoot because something just didn't make sense, or
Right.
there's a lot of YouTube videos too about stuff like that, and
Well, it's like, there's a early draft of Jaws, by Peter Benchley before Carl Gottlieb came on board, and it's very, very different than the final movie.
yeah.
And just how they introduced uh, Chief Brody's character. It's like he has post-it notes in the shower. It's like, what's that? Just a lot of the charm is missing from that draft. And I also had read a early draft of Back to the Future, and it still had. It was before the clock tower, the lightning bolt,
Mm-hmm.
and they were using a nuclear blast to send the car back from the past. So they had to go to like the nuclear testing sites in the desert and be there when the bomb went off, and that projected the DeLorean back into the future. But the thing about that script that really annoyed me was all the product placement was written into the script.
Yeah, I don't
So
like that.
it was at the stage where they had already been selling product placement to advertise to sponsors, and so they had it in bold, Texaco and Pizza Hut and whatever that was in the script. And like, really?
I remember you telling me that at one point during one of those early Back to the Future scripts that he went back in time using a refrigerator or something like that.
Yeah, it was before they had the idea of the DeLorean.
And then that idea ended up being in the Crystal
Indiana
Skull.
Jones.
Ugh.
Right.
Sometimes bad ideas won't die.
Dude, I learned that today, actually. This morning, I read that somewhere. That's
so weird.
ironic.
We could have had Nuking the Fridge 30 years earlier.
No. Imagine if that would have happened. Back to the Future would not be the great movie that it is now.
No.
There's no way. No, not at all. Well, Steve, again, thank you so much for coming on the show. We definitely want to have you on again. I'd love to do another roundtable. Get you and Derek on the show so we can just talk about making movies and script writing and all the trials and tribulations of being filmmakers and trying to get your movie, like how to get your movie into film festivals. I think that would be something people would love to hear about, because there's a lot of people I know that ask me, like, how do I do this? How do I make a movie? Like, I didn't know how to do it either when I first went to make Monsters Anonymous. I had to learn on the fly, and then you came along. I met you after we made that movie, and you helped me out with a lot of stuff the past few years, and you're such a wealth of knowledge that I think that that would be, we could get some good content out of just you.
Well, thank you.
But
I'm not sure if I could live up to that.
But tell everybody where they can find you on the interwebs.
Well, you can go to my website, StephenJWise.com. It's Stephen with a PH. STEPH, not PHT.
And I will put that link in the show notes too.
So that's probably the best place to go to. I also have a Facebook page, which I believe is Stephen Wise Filmmaker. Facebook / but so like my page if you can find it.
And you were thinking about doing a Patreon page for your writing too, weren't you?
I've been knocking around that idea. I haven't launched it yet. I have a short story that I just I'm putting the finishing touches on called The Melting Man, and so I'm really looking at trying to get some more writing done. So I am considering doing a Patreon page for anybody who is interested in reading what I've written.
Well, as soon as you get that done, as soon as you launch it, let me know, and I will advertise it on our social media here for the show.
Thanks. And you can, and as you said before, you can find Batman on it, as well as a book of short stories I wrote called Portals of the Mind. So,
and you can find all that stuff on your website too, right? Links to all that stuff.
Yeah,
okay,
all the links are there.
Yeah, I'll put that link right in the show notes so everybody can just click on that link and go check out Batman Dark Knight and put some change in Steve's pockets.
Yeah, I got a payment from Amazon a couple days ago for $6.42.
Nice.
So like, woo-hoo!
Hey, that's
right.
what I've made. That's about what I've made on Monsters Anonymous so far, being on Amazon Prime. But
that's about what I've made doing comedy.
Yeah.
For you.
So what about you, Jacob? Anything you want to plug before we go tonight?
Yes, we are going to be very light on sponsors this month. So please, if you like this format of us not having sponsors, support us on Patreon so we can afford to not have sponsors.
Yes.
So go to Patreon, and that is at OM Podcast on patreon.com. And for all the locals out there, I host an open mic every Monday at District on the Alley in Gulfport, Mississippi. It is a blue comedy open mic, so please bring your big boy pants, and we have a lot of fun. when I do that.
Fantastic. And if you would like to email us, you can email us at openmikerspodcast@gmail.com. We're on Twitter at openmikers, and we're on Facebook at openmikers podcast. Go follow Steve on Twitter as well. It's at Stephen J. Wise with a PH. And yeah, that's about it. So say goodnight, fellas.
Good night, fellas.
Fantastic. That was a good show, fellas.
I
Yes,
don't know
it
if
was.
this matters or not, but Jason, your audio was cutting out.
Yeah,
Towards
yeah.
the
Oh,
end
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
It does that.
Yeah, it does that. Some. I think whenever, I don't know what it is about this show, but next week I just have to remember I'm going to change our region, because when I talk to Derek, it's fine. But when I get 3 people on
Yeah.
here, I think I need to change us over to Central instead of South. So I'm going to try that next
Well,
week.
it always does. It always does that when you do the theme music. I think it's
Yeah.
I think it's just for us. I think on the recording it goes.
Thank you,
through.
Rampage. Thank you, Derek, everybody that watched in the chat room tonight. We will see you next week right here, 7 o'clock. Be back.